You can't have it.
Yeah, it's funny. I had a conversation with my youngest daughter about TikTok, and I said, "Should I?" And she's like, "No."
Yeah. No. Yeah, just no delay there.
Welcome to episode 14 of Rockstar CMO FM. The M is for marketing, and the F, well, you decide, as we ask the question, does the world need another effing marketing podcast? I'm your host, Ian Truscott, founding editor of Rockstar CMO and chief bottle washer at the content marketing agency at Propingo. If you Google me, I'm the Ian Truscott that is not the killer cross-examining QC from here in London that maybe Google thinks is the Ian Truscott you are looking for. This episode was recorded on Friday the 12th of June, and by the simple measure of whether the pubs are open or not, here in London we're still in lockdown, as 2020 seems to be serving us the full set of the horsemen of the apocalypse. Wherever you are, hope you are safe and well and staying as sane as you feel you need to be. And thank you for taking some time out with us. This episode I chat to Wendy Bryant-Beswick, the VP of Marketing at Service Credit Union, and learn about her approach, some tips for marketing in a crisis, and of course, what she would like to chuck into the Rockstar CMO swimming pool, our portal to hell for all the bullshit, snake oil and overhyped doublespeak that is in the marketing industry. I again get all giggly talking to my friend and content marketing guru Robert Rose, chief troublemaker at the Content Advisory, as we unwind with one of his Friday concoctions and discuss one thought we might take away from a few hours with him at the bar. But first, I'd like to suggest something on rockstarcmo.com that I'd like you to take a look at. Let's get started, shall we? This week, I'd like to steer you in the direction of an article from our latest issue, the Club Classic Volume 1 issue, named after the Soul to Soul album that features the track Keep On Moving. And that's our theme. How do we as marketers keep on moving through the COVID-19 crisis? If you're not familiar with our publication, each issue we have a green room feature where we ask the CMOs we've gone backstage with in the past a topical question for the month. And this issue, which we assembled when the most pressing thing in the world was COVID-19, we asked, what have they learned during the pandemic and what are the crisis keepers? Those things that they or their businesses have had to do or try that they will keep whatever we believe is normal returns. We share the thoughts of five of our CMOs, Ted Rubin, David Howland, Christine Bailey, Kate Bradley-Chernis and Wendy Bryant-Beswick, who we'll hear from in a moment. As Christine Bailey, CMO of Valita, quotes from the marketunist Tom Fishburne, we're not going back to work, we're going forward to work, which is a nice sentiment, and the whole article is well worth a read. I always enjoy this feature as we have such a generous community, and it's worth a flick back through the previous articles in that series just to pick up on some of the things they've said. To read this latest issue and this Green Room feature, go to rockstarcmo.com and click on the latest issue button. I will also share a link in the show notes at rockstarcmo.com/podcast. Right, on to our interview. Wendy Bryant-Beswick is the award-winning VP of Marketing for Service Credit Union. She's a financial services industry expert and industry thought leader around driving growth strategies and member experience. We first met Wendy backstage in the Nevermind issue back in October 2018, and she's a regular contributor to the Green Room feature I mentioned just now. So it's a pleasure to welcome Wendy to the show, and I hope you enjoy this interview. Welcome, Wendy, to Rockstar CMO FM.
Thanks for having me, Ian. I'm really glad to be here with you.
Yeah, it's been quite a while. I think you were one of our earlier guests on Backstage Q&A, and we've collaborated over the last couple of years, so that's fun. But for people that aren't regular readers, tell us a bit about yourself.
Well, I'm in marketing. I've been in marketing most of my career, but on the weekends and in my spare time, I paint. I'm an artist, and I'm out hiking and being outdoors as much as I can. Traveling's a huge thing for me, but I'm not able to do as much of that right now with the current situation. So I spend a lot of time running around New Hampshire, photographing and using that for artwork, which kind of allows me to just sort of shut off what I'm doing during the week, and it really keeps my creative juices going when I can take that time to focus on something that's that creative. I mean, I've love solving business problems, which is the business side of and growing businesses, which is why I'm doing what I'm doing. But that's a little bit about me.
Yeah, nice. And you're in a lovely part of the world there as well, aren't you?
Yes.
Yeah. So, what's your role at the moment?
Right now, I'm the VP of Marketing and Communication. So I head up our marketing efforts, communication. I also started our foundation this year, and I also oversee our financial education efforts. So,
Right.
so
And
a
that's
little
at
bit of,
Service Credit Union.
yes, at Service Credit Union.
And for people, I mean, we get listened to by people all over the place. So for people that don't know what Service Credit Union is, tell us a little bit about them.
So we're a global credit union. We serve military members. We started with serving military members here in New Hampshire, but we now have branches on Army and Air Force bases in Germany. And so we're still serving American soldiers and their families. And we're a credit union, just like any other credit union. But we do have members all over the United States because they're in the military. They move around a lot. But we also serve consumers here in New Hampshire, and we're because we're a credit union, we're really focused on community and and getting products in front of people that really need them.
Yeah, that's good. And when I looked through, when we got introduced and I looked through your LinkedIn profile, you're on something like your 5th leadership role, CMO VP role, heading up marketing. What originally got you into marketing in the first place?
Well, I was always kind of in a project manager role, or I was in sales for a while, which I loved doing that. And I was a business strategist, and I worked with marketing in all those roles and really liked the problem solving side of it. And I love growing the business. And so that kind of got me piqued and interested. I left financial services for a little bit and went and was a director of marketing for a commercial construction company, which was super interesting. That was all B2B, different than the space I'm in today. But that kind of got me going. And then I went back into financial services, and I really have stayed in that sector. I've learned so much in each one of my roles has been slightly different because the industry has so many different channels and arms. I love the credit union space because we're able to serve businesses and consumers. So I can kind of play in both fields, which I love both of those. That's been great. And I love the credit union ethos, really, about people helping people and being part of the communities that we serve. The military aspect of what we're doing today and serving military members has been really cool for me. I haven't been exposed to that, so that's been a lot of fun.
No, very cool. And then sort of on that topic a little bit, really, I think we can all say, I don't want to use the word unprecedented, but 2020 has been quite a ride so far. What's your advice to marketers at the moment?
I think now you've got to either look at if you can't just sort of do what you've always been doing. So if you have things that you've really wanted to get in front of, whether it's brand or looking at marketing in a more unconventional way, I think this is a good time to do that. I think if you want to learn and get into different areas of marketing, whether it's things like marketing automation, more direct marketing, I think now is really the time to do that. We've done that on our team where we pivoted people from roles that were very, very customer facing, and we're obviously able to do events and things like that, but they've been able to pivot into other areas of marketing that they really wanted to know about, but never had the time to spend in those areas. So and you've also just, you've got to have kind of a tough exterior in some ways and just persevere, and keep your thinking really positive, because all these things do eventually get solved, and this gives you a good time to position the company that you're working with for those times, and also think outside the box. I think this is a great time for marketers and business people to just be thinking about being more strategic and doing things maybe a bit differently than they've done in the past.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. I've talked to a number of executives, and they're reflecting on what they've learned through this process and what they should keep and what they should throw away. And I think if you've got the luxury of spending this time pivoting, I think that's really interesting. It sounds like you're very supportive of your team doing that too.
Yes, we are, and we're still doing what we need to do to keep keep ourselves in front of members and drive, in our world, it's loans and of driving a lending business. So we're still doing all those things, but it's been great to be able to have some bandwidth for certain folks to pivot, look at things differently.
Right. And when we asked you about this for the Green Room article for this issue, you mentioned empathy, communication, and be like a person. I thought that really kind of summed it up in 3 points there about how we need to be right now.
Yeah, and I think you really have to think about whether you're in, we're in banking, right? But it doesn't matter what you're doing. You've got to think like a person and what's happening to people today. And when you read, you're reading in the news about what's happening, people are really struggling, and what can you do to align yourself with their situation, and how can you help them? I think it's so important right now. Communication couldn't be even more important now. I think it's something that you should always carry forward.
Yeah. And then, and that really relates to the backstage Q&A that we had, where you mentioned establishing values is the first thing you do when starting a new marketing gig. Tell us a bit about that.
So I think for me, I really want to know when I start something new, what are the company's values? What do employees value, and why are people working at this particular organization? Like, what makes it special? What's the culture about? And all of those things to me are so influenced by values. And I think when you start something new, you want to staff, you want to talk to different people across the organization, but you learn so much by understanding why people are working at that particular organization. And I think once you understand that and have that background, whatever you're going to do in marketing is just that much better, because you really do then understand what's different, what differentiates the business, and why people value it. Because we're all working a lot at these positions, and you do want to be at a place where you really believe in the ethos of the company, you believe what the company's doing and how that company is helping others. So I think it's important to understand that. And I think in the marketing world too, having a focus and a set of values that ladders up to what the company's doing really helps your team just gel and kind of get going on whatever they're kind of march forward with.
Yeah, and so finding genuine brand purpose rather than the lip service that a lot of brands are paying to that sort of thing. Yeah, and that's a lot of what we're seeing right now, isn't it? Through the various crises that 2020 is throwing at us too, is values really do come through, don't they? And talking about the values. You also contributed a splendid piece for us for our people issue, which I recently talked about on last week's podcast, and that issue was focused on diversity. And you said diversity is being invited to the party, and inclusion is being asked to plan the party. I love that, because most people just talk about diversity, but you were talking about inclusion. Tell us a bit about that difference between those two things.
So I think, for me, the first time I had to really do something that was outside of, I would say, my comfort zone was when I was working in a really heavily Hispanic market. And I can't pretend to understand that demographic. I can read research and I can do all these things, but it's not going to really tell me what people want and how we can help them. And having people on the team that are actually part of this group was huge. And it was huge to really work alongside them and understand what we could do that would help this particular market. And it was different than what we were doing, for our other, in terms of our other marketing efforts, very, very different. And I think when you really think of diversity, it's even more than just, it's more than just having people on. You definitely want a diverse team if you can do it. It's sometimes it depends on where you're working and the market that you're in. And if you can't have that, I think you have to get out and talk to people. You've got to talk to customers. I think we all know that, but that's critical. And talking to people who are in that market that that target that you really want to get in front of. For me, though, if you're not working alongside others that are different from you to understand whatever it is you're doing, whether it's marketing or solving business or launching a product, I don't really see how you can be that successful. And so we did some things outside of what we were doing for that organization where we were planning events and doing things really side by side versus just, I was in a leadership role, but instead of just playing the leader, I just wanted to really play alongside people and learn more and kind of just be there in that particular moment for these particular events and what we were doing. And it was hugely valuable to understand what the struggles and challenges were, because it's easy to sort of think of that, and what your own experience is, and your own experience is so specific to you. So that's what I did in that situation, and it really helped. I think if you can't do that, in absence of doing that, because that's not always easy to do, I think that you can also just get out and talk to people and get more involved outside of what you're doing every day. I volunteer. I do a lot of volunteer work for organizations here, food banks and food pantries. And that gets, I'm in front of people who are really struggling, on a every day, just to get food on the table. And so I think when you get exposed to these, people in situations where they're struggling, it helps you kind of bring back that experience to what you're doing and understand. For me, it's so much about, since we're, I'm working in financial services, it's about trying to, understand how we can help people financially. And so that's been, I think that's what I meant when I was writing that, was really, that you've got to kind of think about it in that more holistic way. And
and I think you can meet senior marketers that don't even meet their own customers, let alone people in the community. So I think that's a really positive attitude you have, and great advice to get out there into the community and meet folks. And so and I can understand the difference between inclusion and diversity there is great. A final question for you, because I know you're an incredibly busy woman, and thank you very much for your time. For listeners that don't know, we have the Rockstar CMO swimming pool where we throw all the bullshit and snake oil and all the things we don't like about this wonderful industry that we're in. And when I asked you about that, you nominated one and done marketing. Tell us what you mean by one and done marketing.
Yes, I think, one and done marketing reminds me of when, you could sort of just, I think maybe even 5-10 years ago, you could easily just throw up a TV ad or a billboard and that was it. You really didn't have to do anything else. And I think that in today's world, when you're launching a campaign, initiative, program, whatever it may be, you've got to be nimble enough to tweak it and change it along the way. It's rare that you're going to put something out there that's going to be phenomenally successful and that you never have to touch or tweak and measure and be able to change along the way. So I think, those days of sort of doing things and doing things in a more cookie cutter way too, I think, being more authentic and really speaking to your audience is huge. And I still see things out there today that do feel like this one and done marketing, like people just kind of slapped up an ad and they expect business to roll in the door, and it just doesn't work that way anymore. I know the one thing that we've changed in the last few years here, since I've been here, is we've really gotten rid of most of our traditional marketing. We really aren't seeing that much of a peak there. And so getting in front of people digitally and just doing things differently has been helpful for us. But I think for me, that's just the biggest thing. And then I think I sometimes go kind of back and forth with this, but I also feel like this overemphasis on digital too is just you can't overemphasize any one channel. And so it always frustrates me when I hear people say, well, I could just do Facebook advertising and it's going to drive all of our business. And it doesn't, it depends on if your audience, is your audience really there? And just because you can measure it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be successful. We know sometimes that we can, kind of correlate a marketing activity to a business activity. And sometimes it's just not always going to be on a piece of paper and a spreadsheet. And I think that I have noticed that too in the last couple of years, that just really convincing people and helping business people understand that there's an art to also marketing. It's not all just because you can measure digital doesn't necessarily mean it's your best, the best thing you should be doing. Not to, we all want to measure things and we all want to be successful, and we definitely want our efforts to drive business.
Yeah,
for sure. But that I think those two things kind of have been, I would just like to.
I mean, the first point, I mean, as a content marketer, we always talk about random acts of content, right? So you were really talking about random acts of marketing. And I think the second point there about just because you can measure something doesn't mean you say you should. Just because something's easy to measure doesn't mean that's the thing you should be doing. Maybe you should be doing the hard thing that has a little bit of art to it, as you point out. I think it's really interesting. Thank you very much, Wendy. Well, that was my final question. And if people spin the dial on the interwebs, where can they find you?
I'm always on Twitter, so I'm at Wen Bryant, WenBryant, and that's the best way to find me. That's where I kind of post things and talk as much as I can. So
splendid, and I'll include a link to that in the show notes. So thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Ian.
I look forward to catching up soon.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
Splendid. Thank you, Wendy. I will, of course, include all the links we discussed, plus a link to Wendy on Twitter and LinkedIn in the show notes at rockstarcmo.com/podcast. Right. My world-class cocktail track and trace app has just beeped, meaning Robert Rose is in the bar. Let's go join him. Good evening, Robert. What are you drinking?
Oh, hello, my friend. It's so wonderful to be with you. We've got a really fun cocktail this week. So we're calling it the Honeybee, but it's not going to be as sweet as you think it is. And so the first thing you have to do, it's a little bit more of one of those complicated drinks. So if you get a smoky mezcal, and a mezcal is sort of a very Scotch-like version of tequila, but it's very dark, it's much darker drink. And you just rinse the glass with it, right? Just enough, just pour enough of it in the glass to swish it around and get a good coating on the inside of the glass. Then you put in a little fresh lime, some Manuka honey, and Manuka honey is incredibly wonderful, by the way, very healthy sort of honey. If you don't have Manuka honey, you can certainly use any kind of honey that you have. Mm-hmm. A few dashes of orange bitters, and then a healthy dose of whatever your favorite reposado tequila is. And it's mix all that together, and it becomes this very smoky sweet sort of drink that we call the Honeybee.
Oh my God, that sounds amazing. And then, I have Hendrick's gin. Is that anywhere similar to any of those ingredients?
Yeah, I think it's in the same category as the tequila. Yeah, they're both alcohol. That's for sure. Yeah.
Oh, I've forgotten. You said something about just rinsing the glass in it or something. I seem to have poured some in there. Okay. And then you said another thing, which I thought you said was ice, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, exactly.
A bit like
this one does have ice. Yeah, ice is good.
And the honey. You said I could use any kind of honey.
Any kind of honey. Yes.
All right, so I'll use tonic.
Yeah, there you
All
go.
right.
Very good.
So let's have a taste of this. I'm just going to sip it because it sounds really special. It's really special. Oh, that's very special. That's very nice. It's very similar to what I've had before, weirdly enough, and I don't quite get the smokiness you talked about, but it's very nice. That is delicious, and I will be having those again.
Nice.
And if we were sharing a few of these, where would you take us for one of these?
I think one of my favorite places to be in the summertime, because this is also a spring or early summer kind of drink, is, it's a little bit counterintuitive, but one of the places I really like to go is the mountains in the late spring and early summer, because it's just so fresh and great hiking and all of that. And so there's a place in Colorado that I love to go to. My wife and I love to go to. It's called Breckenridge. And it's mainly known as a ski resort.
Yeah, I was going to say.
And but in the summertime, it's just absolutely spectacular place to spend a little time. It's quiet. You can take some amazing hikes, see some waterfalls. It's just a beautiful place to hang out in the mountain air and fresh and have a drink like this.
That sounds splendid. I've worked with a number of people from Colorado, and they love their state. And I've been to Denver a couple of times, but I've never been out in the mountains. But that you've painted a beautiful picture there, and I could imagine drinking a few of these there. So, are we drinking these in some kind of lodge overlooking this kind of view that you've just shared with us? Do you think?
I think we probably are drinking in some kind of lodge, or certainly, what would be really fun would be to have it out at a campfire, right? A cool late spring, where it's just cool enough to have a lovely campfire would be fantastic.
Right. Okay. So the fire's burning down, and we've had a good old chat, and hopefully I resisted the temptation to get the guitar out. I can't play. What thought would I be going back to my tent with this week?
Well, I think this week what we're talking, it's funny. We've been having a lot of conversations with our clients around the idea of being, there are a lot of companies that are pivoting hard right now to content, right? Because it feels like the right thing to do, given the world and the state and what's going on with, just politics and everything, and selling and advertising. It feels good to go to content. And the challenge is, of course, is that in many ways, the things that our content practitioners have been working on, getting organized, getting strategic, getting measured about it. One of the things that can happen is that we lurch right over to the other side of the pendulum, right? Where we lurch over to, just executing. And we forget that we were actually building a pretty good strategy to begin with here. Yeah. And one of the things that we've been cautioning is to say, hey, listen, maybe take your time and actually go back to the strategy you were working on and get it right. Figure out the right personas, the journey mapping, do a content audit, see where you are, and actually get those new protocols and guidelines and processes in place before you just lurch into creating because you feel like you've got to get there quickly. Yeah. It doesn't mean that you can't start creating right away, but it does mean that, take the time that you haven't taken before, which is to get the strategy right, so that the next time that this happens, you actually have a great foundational strategy and you're not just lurching from one extreme to the other. Yeah, and that's so wise, and that's so wise for anything. So many organizations talk in terms of tactics and skip past that. We've got to do more content, or we've got to do more video, or we've got to do more social. Yeah, exactly. Video is a big one, right? Yeah. I just had a client the other day saying the same thing, and I'm kind of rewinding, saying, why, and who for, and why would they want that, and all those kinds of questions. So I think those are wise words in any day. I think, Robert. And if I was to we part ways, and I want to come back to some of your wisdom, where would I find that? Well, you're very kind to ask about that, my friend. If you wanted to talk more about content marketing, content strategy, content operations, you can hit us up at contentadvisory.com. rockstarcmo.net. And then, of course, I'm on all the social channels as well, except TikTok. I'm not a TikTok guy. So you will not find me on TikTok, but you'll find me everywhere else, Twitter, LinkedIn, and would be happy to connect with people there.
Yeah, I made a joke in one of the last episodes where I pretended I got a TikTok notification from you, and I just wondered whether people would start looking for you on TikTok.
Very nice. Yes.
But yeah.
You'll be sorely disappointed if you look there. You would be sorely disappointed if you found me there and you put it that way.
Yeah, it's funny. I had a conversation with my youngest daughter about TikTok, and I said, should I? And she's like, no.
Yeah. No. Yeah, just no delay there.
She couldn't be firmer. Anyway, so it's a delight as ever, and thank you for joining me this week, Robert.
Absolutely a pleasure.
I'll speak to you again soon. Thank you. Right, thank you, Robert. Always fun to chat to Robert, and I hope you're enjoying this segment of the show as much as I am recording it. Well, that's it. Episode 14 of Rockstar CMO FM. Thank you for dropping your virtual quarter into the podcasting jukebox and jiving along with us. Thank you to Wendy for the interview and to Robert for the cocktail and marketing tips. And thank you to the Rockstar CMO community that support our publication. You can find links to all the people and articles from this episode in the show notes at rockstarcmo.com/podcast. If you like what you heard, and maybe you can help us with the question of whether the world needs another effing marketing podcast, please drop us a rating in the podcasting platform of your choice. Or if you have any feedback, you can find us at rockstarcmo.com or at rockstarcmo on Twitter and LinkedIn. Look forward to hearing from you. Next week, I'm looking forward to chatting to Jane Scandura, personal branding and general marketing guru. Very much looking forward to that. In the meantime, I've been your host, Ian Truscott, founding editor of rockstarcmo.com, and I look forward to you joining us again soon on Rockstar CMO FM.
You may know you're listening to this show along the Marketing Podcast Network, but did you know there are other great shows on MPN to help your business? Christy Heiler hosts a fantastic podcast called Own It. Christy, tell us more about the show.
Own It is all about celebrating women and non-binary advertising agency owners. We talk about buying out of the Boys Club of Advertising because less than 1% of ad agencies are owned by women.
And where can people subscribe?
You can find the podcast at untilyouownit.com. We're also on the Marketing Podcast Network at marketingpodcast.net. And of course, you can subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
You heard her. Go subscribe. This podcast is heard along the Marketing Podcast Network. For more great marketing podcasts, visit marketingpodcasts.net.